Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful video game from a particular moment in their life. On the show, we get into as much about what made playing that game special as we will to get into the context of our guest's life on how and when they had this meaningful time with it. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I plug today, you can find a link in the show notes. So whether there's an awesome podcast that's advertised or a cool improv workshop, if you scroll down wherever you're watching or listening, whether it's on YouTube or on a podcaster of your choice, scroll down. There's going to be a nice cozy link ready for you to click. But that'll do it for the housekeeping. And I'll finally introduce our guest for today's episode. Please welcome to the microphone, musical improviser, Sara Rose Caplan.
Hello, Connor. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. And I mean, not that the listener needs to know this, but thank you for adjusting to my ever-changing schedule out here and moving our recording date.
No problem. I know how it goes. And yeah. My money job is I'm a tutor who works from home on Zoom anyway.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy to slot a podcast in.
Huge. Okay, great. And I'm sure...
And I also, listeners, if you're just listening, you won't have seen this, but if you're watching the video recording, Connor, great job making eye contact with the webcam for that opening monologue.
Thank you.
An underrated skill. It's so awkward to do, and you nailed it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, we're making little improvements every way we can on the episode because this is episode 220. So what a nice round number for us. So every 5, I make a slight improvement. So I guess maybe that's my most recent one. Well, thank you for coming on the show again. You don't need to know this or want to know this, but I haven't had air conditioning for about a month. But tomorrow, the thing that's going to be happening is that plumbers are coming to install drain lines for the units above me so that we're not all sharing the same drain line, which is why I have an air conditioning. So, we're about to have a heat wave here in LA. I don't know if you've caught wind of this, so pretty convenient time.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle of when my girlfriend and I are trying to move to a new house, but
fun.
That's going to be great.
Yes. Okay. So we're all dealing with our own, heat-related issues. Well,
yes,
again,
I'm also recording this from a room that does not have air conditioning.
Yes.
So I feel your pain. We're in it together.
Yes. We'll keep it a crisp hour and a half. We've got water. But again, I'm so excited to have you on. I know you because you are one of the more recent people to be on UCB's Herald Night. It's been such a easy way for me to just meet and get to know new people all the time as they come into my life, and also oftentimes new guests for the podcast. It's almost like it's my recruiting ground. But that's how we've gotten to know each other, Sara. I know you as an amazing improviser. I also know you do a lot of musical improv. What do you want to share with the listener about yourself, and do you want to plug anything?
Oh, wow. Plugs up top. Okay. Yeah, I am on a UCB Herald team right now, and I'm having a lot of fun. It's been really nice to get back into doing regular improv for a bit, because I do mostly do musical. Since 2017, I've basically exclusively did musical improv until the end of last year.
Cool.
So it's been fun to get back into it and remember it's in so many ways, improv is improv. And in so many other ways, musical improv and regular improv are completely different art forms.
Yeah.
And it's been admittedly kind of tricky to navigate, getting back into just navigating the expectations that my scene partners have that differ from in the different spaces.
Yeah.
But it's been fun and forced me to think a lot about improv and learn about it, which has been great because I also teach musical improv workshops, and I have a lot of fun using them. They're very experimental drop-in workshops. And every time we experiment with a brand new form that I come up with the group. And it's also been such a great petri dish where I'll have a thing happen in a scene where I'm like, that was weird. That didn't go how I expected. Or I wonder if this would have been better. And then I can force my students to test out different iterations of it for me. So I get some empirical evidence, and it's fun. And a
That's
lot of times
awesome.
I'm like, oh wow, what I thought would have worked better didn't work better at all, actually. So
Sure.
uh,
You're getting to do science experiments with the
yes,
students
it's
as the guinea
improv
pigs.
science. Yeah, exactly. I'm like a real professional psychologist.
Yes, exactly. That's the perfect comparison for it. That's cool. I'm learning more about stuff that I didn't know about your improv journey. Was there what like was the inspiration for you, having been doing the majority musical improv, at least in recent history for you? What was the inspiration to audition for Herald Night? Was it something you always wanted to do? Were you like, may as well give it a shot? What was it for you?
So my main inspiration to audition was it was twofold. On the one hand, I wanted to be able to teach improv at UCB or elsewhere, and that felt like just such an important thing
Hmm.
to have on your resume if you want to move into that space, unless you want to be limited to only teaching musical improv, which I
Yeah.
don't, because I love all kinds of improv. And the second part of why I feel like Harold, for better or worse, is set up as a gatekeeping filter for so many of the other shows at the theater
Mm,
that I did want access to.
yeah.
I was not someone who spent a ton of time watching Herald Night and was obsessed with Herald as a form and can tell you all the Herald teams of the last 10 years. But I kind of just I feel bad because so many people audition for these teams and it's so competitive, and I had ulterior motives.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it for Herald, but since getting on it, it's been an interesting journey, and like adjusting to this form as someone who comes from a way more form form agnostic or actively form experimental
Hmm.
space. The limits can feel at times so constricting and claustrophobic, and
Yeah.
trying to relax into that and like focus on what I can learn as a result has been, I think, really helpful for me.
That's cool. Yeah, I can imagine, like, especially people who are listening who are familiar with improv in general, let alone musical. And Harold, you described it perfectly, where I'm sure there was, like, could even be whiplash for someone going from doing only musical or like majority musical, where it seems from the outside, as someone who's only done it in like one-off shows, when they're like, hey, every team's doing this today. It seems so like it can be so freeing and fun, and like you said, experimental. So yeah, that's not surprising to me that there's like an adjustment to be made there. But that's so cool. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that and letting me ask you just about that
Yeah, of
journey too.
course. Yeah, I think like the main whiplash is what's considered like a grounded reality.
Uh-huh.
Like musical improv, especially what I do, which is mostly like my show is called Dramatique that I do at UCB, and our goal is to do like an improvised Les Miserables or Phantom. Like it's a sung through hour-long musical, no talking allowed. And like the base reality, we're playing huge theater archetypes of characters, but that's not what's unusual
Yes.
when we are doing it. And like that's just something that's been so ingrained in me and was the hardest part for me to learn about improv. Like even going through the UCB curriculum, the non-musical curriculum, every note I got for years was like, you need to feel these scenes more emotionally. You need to be bigger in your performance. Like, and so that was like, I worked for years to become a bigger performer and to commit myself as a performer. And now in the space of Herald, or when I've done other regular improv shows at UCB, I will initiate a scene and I'll be like, I'll be a villain and I have a plan. Or I'll be a brave knight who's going to conquer, whatever. Like, I just like my default instinct that I've trained into myself now is big archetypal characters to then build an unusual thing on top of. But when you do that with someone who comes from the world of UCB training and especially Herald regular improv, they've the norms in the milieu are so different that I'll be like, welcome to my lair. And they'll be like, oh, that's weird. Like, you sound like a villain there.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, yep.
You're like, still getting there.
Now this is the weird thing.
Yes.
I had a whole premise, but nope. And it's just like, it's not that they're fucking with me or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like we're speaking different improv languages.
Yeah.
And having to relearn, like, okay, what is standard here? How do I bring what I have come to love and think I am good at, and like am so proud of having developed in myself as a performer? How do I still bring that to the stage in this space while also like existing in the world that other people are more familiar with, so that we can actually communicate as improvisers on the stage? It's been a fascinating challenge. But yeah,
that sounds fascinating, and what a cool journey for you to be on. Now that makes me want to go see you, because I've actually never even seen you do musical improv. I've only seen you do like 3 or 4 Heralds in like the last 6 months, which you're like, that's your breadth of experience in my performance. But now it makes me want to see you perform musical improv even more. But way to go. You were talking about, or no, we got through some improv stuff. Did you want to plug either your workshop or your podcast too?
Yeah, I do. Sorry. I know you're an improv nerd, so I went off on a tangent.
This is like every other episode, someone and I do something like this. So like, it's welcome and thank you.
Great. Okay, perfect. Listen to my podcast. I have a Riverdale season 6 rewatch podcast called Riverdale season 6, co-hosted by my friend Omar Najam and me. And we are big fans of Riverdale, who've seen the whole show and love it. And we are rewatching Riverdale season 6. Each week, we're joined by a friend who's never seen Riverdale and who is asked just to watch whatever specific episode of season 6 we're reviewing that day. And it's very silly. To give you a taste of honestly, just like right off the bat, you're not familiar with Riverdale, I think you've told me.
Yes, yeah, correct? You're correct.
Yeah. People know it as like maybe like the hot CW Scooby-Doo show, if they know it as anything.
Yes.
By season 6, the show is so utterly off the rails that like people will come into an episode and they'll be like, who's that? And they'll be like, oh, that's Percival Pickens. He's an immortal racist warlock who came into this universe from the Splinter universe of Riverdale that happened when Hiram Lodge tried to set a bomb off under Archie and Betty's bed. And now he's trying to take over Pop's chocolate shop to turn it into a ghost train, which would give him dominion over the realms of the living and the dead. And Archie and friends have to use their alternate universe superpowers in order to stop him. It's an amazing show. Yeah. I genuinely believe that Riverdale season 6 is one of the best seasons of television ever made.
Yeah.
Like, unironically, it's just a writer's room. The show is so past jumping the shark that they've just been unleashed to indulge in all of their, like, they're clearly huge, passionate nerds. And, like, the beauty of the show is none of this is done ironically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I guess it's camp. They know it's ridiculous, but within that, they are still sincerely trying to like pay homage to the genres that they love and the stories that they love. And the actors just fucking crush it. They're given the most ridiculous scripts in the world and they do it. So
that's so cool. What, like, first of all, like, what a great premise for a show. And also, it's the only podcast, like TV watching podcast, that I've ever heard that is based on one season of a TV show, like quite specifically. So that's already really cool. But it sounds to me, the more you're talking to me about Riverdale, that it's kind of like what they've done with the show from beginning to end, like how you were saying, like it's jumped the shark so much. It sounds like Community, like cubed almost, as far as like how nuts. I don't know if you ever watched Community, but how off the rails they would go in like episodes and seasons, especially as the show went on, like season 2 and on, really. So it sounds like this show is just like doing that, but leaps and bounds further.
Yeah, they literally just do whatever they want. Like the first
Yeah.
5 episodes don't even take place in Riverdale. They take place in the alternate universe of Rivervale. And it's just like, and they don't ease you into that. Like
Yeah.
a bomb goes off at the end of season 5 and season 6 starts and we're in Rivervale.
Gosh.
And it's a world where anything is possible.
Yeah.
There's a La Llorona episode. There's an episode where the devil goes around making deals with people, and it's very like I can't remember the name of that Stephen King novel, Needful Things kind of vibes. Yeah, they just really allow themselves to have fun and explore, and it's like every genre in one season of television.
Yeah. That's
It was really fun to record, has been really fun to record. I'd never done a podcast before. I just started reaching out to people. Like, we're about to release an episode with Chell Steven, who's directed an episode of season 4.
Oh, wow.
And we do an episode with Nikolai Wetchel, who plays Dr. Curdle Jr., the Riverdale medical examiner at the town morgue, who's my favorite side character in the piece. And I just reached out to him. I was like, do you want to do this thing? And he was like, hell yeah. It turns out he's an improviser in Vancouver, and he was totally down.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's just like, as a project, it's been so fun.
Oh, well, congrats. That's awesome. I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes, at least to probably the Apple Podcast page for your show.
Yeah.
But congrats.
Thank you. We can boost our 40 weekly listeners.
Yeah, we're getting at least to 42 after your episode comes out.
Thank you.
You betcha. Really just doing our best to just lift people up on our shoulders. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for diving into that for me. Is there anything else you want to say about yourself or plug before we introduce the game you've brought on?
Yeah. Okay. Other things to know about myself. I'm a trans woman, and I just like being explicit about that. And if you're a listener and you're trans, hey, cool. Me too. Sick. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I've got my musical improv workshops. Cool. If you're in LA and you want to do some musical improv, whether you've done it or not, reach out to me via my Instagram at Sara Rose Caplan. It's been really fun to build those up. I love teaching improv, but because I'm a tiny small fry doing little indie workshops at the clubhouse, I can't say no to people, which is fun. So I'll have a mix of people who are really great experienced musical improvisers who are just wanting to get some reps in. And then I'll have people basically every time who are like, I've never done it before.
Yeah.
And it creates a really interesting environment for people to practice in. It's what I argue that it's the ideal argument for the advanced students. Maybe not. But it provides challenges for them to use to grow. Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, not that it's exactly like a jam environment, but I feel like, if the jams that I've done in my life, those present an opportunity to be like, who can I improvise with of all skill levels, whether it's someone who is maybe performing for the first time or someone who is even more experienced than myself. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think performing with someone who's less experienced than you is definitely one of the best ways to learn how to be a good supportive player. And especially in the world of musical improv, it's much unlike the unusual person voice of reason. It's much more like the equivalent of the unusual person idea would be like, okay, whose song is this in this scene? And then the other person is like their sidekick, who's helping them find the moment of emotional resonance and clarity that they can then sing about. And it can often be just standard game. There's game in all these scenes as well. But it's just a little bit different. Your job isn't to voice of reason them, it's to help them find out what are they really saying here. Yeah, we could talk about how do we attract more customers to the bakery, but what are you really feeling about this bread?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's super fun. I learned so much more about improv from teaching it. I feel like such a better improviser sitting in the teacher's chair because you get to just watch scenes and then afterwards be like, what would have been really funny?
Yeah.
Um,
Here's my great pitch.
all my coaches and teachers through the years, I've been like, I just don't get it. They're a freaking genius. And now I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that they weren't freaking geniuses, but
Yeah. I try to, it's interesting that you bring that up because I do as like, I'm not coaching very much right now, but I was coaching a lot more at the beginning of the year. And I felt the same thing that I learned so much from doing it, but B, yeah, it is as much as I am like, participating with my brain or even when I'll watch a fellow Herald team doing like an opening, I'm trying to participate internally and be like, okay, what premises did I think were funny as they go? I try to like clock them as if I'm on stage, but you do have the luxury of, since you are literally not performing, there's such a luxury of like, oh, well, you can just truly focus on that if you want to. So, that's so cool. I know we've talked about improv for a while, but the last thing I'll say too is that I've seen so much more musical improv this year because you met my girlfriend Amanda after Herald Night the other night.
I did,
which,
yeah.
Sorry for not introducing you. I assumed you knew each other through musical improv, but then one of you introduced each other to the other, and I was like, oh, shit, well, there went that opportunity. But she's been doing, she's like just finished 301 recently, musical improv, and like loves it. So even the things you're talking about like whose song is it and how are they feeling and whatnot is so reminiscent of so much of like what she's told me about the curriculum in musical with like Tara. But also the shows that I've seen have been so much fun. So, I really didn't have anything to add to that besides saying that I understand a little bit of this and it sounds cool.
No, that's great. That's an addition. I Amanda, if we had met before, I apologize for introducing myself to you. Usually when I meet people in the musical improv space, it's like after I've just done a show or a set and there's like 100 people there and I'm so bad with names and faces to begin with. When you combine that with the come down of adrenaline from performing, I apologize.
I mean, musical
I've introduced
and
myself
regular.
to so many people that I'll do it like 6 times in a row.
Yes.
And I feel so bad about it.
Like, I think I have a good memory for that stuff. And certain people, like Amanda will say the same thing about me. But I've plenty of times reintroduced myself to people because I don't think we've met. And I want to make sure that I actually do so. And then most of the time people are like, oh my gosh, no, we've met. It's so nice to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And that's cool. I've also, not that it matters, but I've had the opposite of people being like, hey, we've met before. And like, I don't know what to do about it. It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's not personal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's I'm not saying you're not memorable as a human being.
No, yeah.
I'm saying the context in which we met was not good for my already short attention span and bad memory.
Just the product of this, of really meeting someone in any improv context, there's a likelihood it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing about yourself and talking about the stuff you've been doing. I'll put a link to both your Instagram and I'll also Riverdale Season 6 podcast. Is that the full title?
Riverdale Season 6, the podcast, yes.
The podcast. There'll be links in the show notes. But we're going to pretty soon hear about, your journey with video games in general. But before we do, will you please introduce what you've brought on for the main event today and call me by your game?
Yes, I will happily do so. First, I do feel the need to apologize, which I do anytime I bring this topic up. But the game I have brought for this episode is League of Legends.
Awesome. I ran into someone yesterday, or kind of like got reacquainted with someone who, like a husband of a friend who I'd met once, and he, unprompted, I didn't even bring up the video game podcast or games in general. He was talking about a mutual friend, and he's like, oh yeah, during the pandemic, him and I became addicted to League of Legends. And I was like, well, I'm going to hear about that topic tomorrow from a friend. So I'm so pumped to hear from you about this later in the main event. But let's get into your history with games. Do you remember some of like your earliest memories watching or playing video games?
Yeah, I do. Thanks to your prompting and knowing that was coming in this episode. The first video game system that we had was an N64 that my grandparents gave my older brother and me. My younger brother was a baby or not born yet for Christmas. He must have been born. I was 3 years old, but he was an infant, so he wasn't included on the gift. It's not his. The N64 belongs to Henry and me.
We're making sure we're getting that on the podcast in case there's a custody battle of the 64 family 64 someday.
Yeah. And as part of that, they gave each of us a game, and the game I received was Yoshi's Story.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. Yoshi's Story for the N64. Really cute game. That was probably one of the first games that I really played. I was very young. I also know I have fewer direct memories of this, but I have been told by my mother, who's not like a gamer at all. So it's interesting. But my older brother they'd gotten him a Game Boy, and he was like a little too young to really care about it yet. So my mom would just, for a while, obsessively play the A Bug's Life Game Boy game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I have vague memories of watching her play that, which then when I was in high school, I had a Motorola Droid on
Sick.
which I had some emulators, including a Game Boy emulator.
All right.
And I would just play A Bug's Life Game Boy on A Bug's Life, the Game Boy game, on my Motorola Droid at school. It was great.
Taking up the family mantle. That's so
Yes.
good. That's first of all, I love that anecdote already is perfect, and we can wrap up the podcast because that's really sweet thinking about your mom playing that game. It's the producer of the show, one of my close friends, Jeremy Schmidt. He talks about how his mom would obsessively play the Game Boy, but she would play Tetris, which is seems pretty standard.
She played a lot of Tetris too.
There we go. It's an accessible puzzle game. I feel like most people in the world who've played it probably enjoy it in some sense, maybe. But hearing that someone's mom played the A Bug's Life Game Boy game, which I actually don't know that game. I know the PlayStation 1 A Bug's Life, but I'm just amazed. That's so funny. Was it what kind of game was it? Was it a side-scrolling platformer?
Yeah, really basic side-scrolling platformer. You play Flick with your seed harvesting machine.
Cool.
And it's, the classic platformer. The little monsters are like various goons from the grasshopper side of the movie.
Okay.
And you have a little seed launcher. So you have a little projectile. You shoot seeds at the grasshoppers as you go through the game. And that's all I remember about it. I'm sure it's more advanced than that. If you're in a big A Bug's Life head out there, let us know. Is it cooler than I'm giving it credit for?
What?
In my head, I want to say that you collect upgrades to your machine as you play, but I think I'm manufacturing that information.
You know what? I want to choose to believe that. So
yeah, that feels like what it should happen, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to be watching YouTube videos on this later, thanks to this.
Yep.
This is all something I do on the shows. I make it about myself all the time. I'll just say before
your podcast.
Yeah, I have this platform. Before I kick it back to you, because I have a question I want to ask. The Bug's Life PlayStation 1 game is one of those games that I never owned because I didn't have a PlayStation until truly summer of 2020. Using the money that I got laid off with to buy a PlayStation from eBay.
A PlayStation 1?
Truly a PlayStation 1
yeah.
and not the original PlayStation 1, but the PS 1 that's more round shaped.
Yeah.
That it's actually a really cute console. But long story short is that one game I got was a game I used to go over to my friend's house before school and watch him play the Bug's Life PlayStation 1 game. And I have it now. I've played a little bit of it. Honestly, that would be a fun game to stream. I think. But anyway, I just wanted to say that not your Bug's Life, but I do have
a different, more advanced Bug's Life game.
Yes, and it's just one of those that sticks in my mind so specifically. I could probably do an episode of Call Me by Your Game about it if I were interviewed by someone. But anyway, I'll get back to the N64. Was that, so I know it was your first console. Was that a console that you picked up the habit of gaming, you were doing it kind of regularly, or was that something later?
Gaming was and has always been for me primarily a social activity.
Cool.
So I would play games with my brothers. I would play games with my cousins. And N64 was a big part of that. Like,
Awesome.
my cousin Kobe would come over and we'd, like, probably most of our lives, we would play through Pokemon Snap all the way through at least a couple times a year.
Yes.
With my little brother Joseph as well. He was part of that crew. A lot of that, a lot of Pokemon Stadium. I'd say the first game I really played by myself as like a game was Ocarina of Time.
Okay, cool.
But I didn't come back to that until I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We like had it, and it was spring break, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna see what this is all about.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, I would say the game that I was most addicted to, that most made me like a gamer as a kid, was Pokemon.
Cool. Like the original games on Game Boy, or?
Yeah. Red and Blue to start, but my generation is Gold. That's my favorite generation. I've played that game so many times. I've beaten Pokemon Gold version specifically with just a Typhlosion and a bunch of HM friends, probably like 9 times.
Oh, dude.
That was another game I had on my Motorola Droid emulator.
Oh man, I could talk about. I loved them too. I was young enough to like experience the originals, but I fall in the same camp where Silver is not just my favorite Pokemon game, but it's in like my personal top 10 favorites ever. Like. Yeah. You kind of can't see it. I'm going to try to point out a poster, but there's an Ecruteak City poster here.
Ecruteak City. Hell yeah.
You can see if my camera will let me move it. You can kind of see Ho-Oh and Lugia up there.
Yeah, Burnt Tower.
So just after my own heart. I love hearing that.
Yeah, it's a great game. My older brother, I can tell you exactly. My older brother got Pokemon Blue version when I was probably 4. No, it came out in 98 here, right?
I think so, yeah.
I would have been 6. Okay, so I was in first grade. And I distinctly remember the first time he let me play it, accidentally saving over his save file. Because I didn't know how that worked.
Classic, yeah.
And he was so pissed at me. And also when I was first grade, my sixth birthday, I got a bunch of Pokemon cards and the Pokemon 2B Master CD, which I love so much. It was one of the 2 CDs I had in my car in high school once I could drive.
Oh, sick.
And I know most of the words to most of those songs.
Yeah.
Like, there was a big part of my life where I knew all the words to all those songs. But I could still probably bust most of them out.
I also love that soundtrack. It's been a long time since I've listened to that full thing. I had the CD as a kid as well. It sounds like I'm about 2 years older than you.
I'm born in 92.
Okay, and I'm born in 90. We did the math. Look at that.
Beautiful.
I had the CD, and to just share another memory, I remember being like a little 8-9-year-old kid listening to because the rendition they do of the Pokemon theme song on that album is awesome. It still gets me honestly
it's
pumped.
Sick. It's the whole extended version, the sick guitar solo.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish I remembered the singer's name who did it for that version, but and maybe we'll get to shout him out. But
I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna shout him out.
Oh, thank you. I just remember listening to that and imagining myself performing a dance in front of my class to the Pokemon theme song, and just it was the most exhilarating, imaginative moment I remember having as a kid. So I also
Jason
love that.
Page, shout out Jason Page.
Jason Page. Goodness, that's so cool. It sounded like you were a big Cyndaquil fan in Generation 2.
Huge Cyndaquil fan. Okay, wait. This might be inappropriate, but
no, go for it.
It's not inappropriate. But it's just for the video viewers.
Oh, huge. I think that's going to answer my question of who your favorite starter was in Gen 1.
Yeah, so for the listeners who aren't watching the video here, I just showed Connor my Cyndaquil and Charmander being best friends in love tattoo that's on my thigh.
It's so cute.
Fire starters all the way.
Yeah.
And that's why I fell off of Pokemon, because the long run of firefighting starters got me so frustrated that a game would come out. I'm like, firefighting? I'm not going to play it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had fallen off by Gen 3, and I eventually would play more. Since we're still talking about your history with games, was that like, did you play Gen 3, and then was it after that you sort of fell off of Pokemon?
I played Gen 3. I've played Emerald multiple times.
Cool.
I played Gen 3. I definitely like had Black and White and X and Y, but never beat them. I like was like, okay, the DS just as a platform didn't really work for me.
Sure.
And that's mostly where I fell off. Like I was like, I'm just gonna go play Gold version again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard not to return to that.
It's so good. It's the best game.
It's just as good as it gets. So for you, it sounds like Pokemon was a game that like was the first game you were like, I am really doing this. It's a lot of social gaming for you. After the N64, did you continue social gaming with your siblings and cousins or friends after that period?
Yeah, so there was a lot of my little brother is much more of like a gamer than me. It was a very much a Call of Duty Halo house for years. Like once he started his reign of video game dominance in the household, he was like a total Call of Duty kid. Any FPS game, I'm terrible at any game that is first person.
Yeah.
I like a top-down game. It is soothing to my brain. I can do side scrollers. First person, once I have like a joystick that's just controlling the camera, I am lost.
Yes.
It makes me feel so old, but I've always been like that, even since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, yes, but I would play those. My little brother would crush me in Halo and Call of Duty a lot. And I played a lot of Age of Mythology, Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Cool.
Those are like my PC games. I love Age of Mythology so much. I don't know if you played that one much.
No, not a lot of like, because that's also like a sim game, right?
It's like Age of Empires.
Okay, yeah.
If you've played that, yeah.
I'm more familiar with Age of Empires.
Yeah, it is Age of Empires, but you're playing as either Greece or a Nordic culture or Egypt. And as you level up, you choose different gods to worship. And then you can and the military units, you have like mythical creatures. So if you're Greek, you can build like a bunch of centaurs and shit like that.
Oh, that's sick.
Great game.
Okay.
Amazing game.
Sounds like you had a PC at some point growing up, and so those were some of the highlights for you there?
We had our family PC.
Cool.
Yeah. I'd also play a lot of RuneScape. That was a big social game for me. In elementary school, my friends Jimmy and Dagwan and I would play a ton of RuneScape.
I love it.
Yeah. But after that, I went through a long period of time, like middle school and high school, where gaming just wasn't what my friends and I did together. Until senior year of high school. We had an N64 in the senior lounge, and I probably played an average of 2.5 hours of Super Smash Bros. A day for my senior year of high school.
Yes. Oh, first of all, senior lounge? That sounds amazing. I didn't know they had senior lounges.
It was amazing. Yeah. I went to a pretentious fancy private school, and we had just a big room where the only seniors were allowed, and it's where we hung out.
Are you from LA or somewhere else?
I'm from Houston.
Houston. Okay, gotcha.
Which is basically, if you've never been to Houston, it's LA, but flat, less nature, and no creative industries.
Gotcha.
But
that's great.
Big, sprawling, super multicultural, great food, fun people.
And apparently senior lounges, which I cut you off, but you were getting to this Smash Bros. Story.
Oh, I just played it too much.
Yeah. Who's your main on 64?
On 64? 64, I would play most of them.
Okay.
I've been playing that game my whole life and still play it. And I would say my most consistent main is Blue Party Hat Pikachu.
Cool.
And but at various points in the past, like when I was like really good, when I could nail like the Ness Infinite combos and stuff, like I played a lot of Ness, played a lot of DK. My main now is Incineroar in the current iteration.
Okay. Is this is Incineroar fighting fire as well? So have we come around on the fighting fire?
He's unfortunately fighting fire. Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes you just it comes back. So there it is.
He's a big furry boy.
Yeah.
And I like him. What can I say?
Totally.
He's good. He's silly. I love any Smash character with a counter.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So we've kind of gotten through like high school. We don't have to hit like all your highlights in your life, but I would like to know, leading up to maybe not exactly present day, but were there any other highlights you wanted to hit from like end of high school to recent history, like a few?
Like prime, like good games.
Sure, it could have been also
meaningful.
social experiences or solo stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say one of my more recent. I've gotten increasingly into Let's Plays.
Oh,
so
cool.
A lot of the ways I engage in video games over the last few years has been watching.
Yeah.
I had a long City Skylines Let's Play era. Yeah. So I've watched who knows how many hours of people building cities.
Like, will you start at someone that's like, hey, I'm starting a playthrough. Watch me start from scratch?
Correct.
That is so cool.
I'm talking like 90 episode series of like welcome. There's a dude named City Planner Plays who's like now he's a professional Let's Play guy, but he was an actual city planner. And he just started streaming City Skylines, and I was in law school at the time, and I was also working as a clerk for Nithya Raman's office.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like really interested in understanding more about cities from that perspective.
Yeah.
And here was this guy who's like an actual city planner who's playing this game, but using it as a vehicle also to talk about his experiences working in planning and like working with city governments and like why certain decisions are made. And it's really fascinating. But yeah, the episode would be like, welcome back to City Planner Plays. We're here at episode 87, where this time I will be trying to figure out the parking situation over in the boardwalk district of Verde Beach. If you've been watching for a long time, you'll know that we get a lot of traffic buildup over there. So let's see what we can do. And then he'll just spend an hour and a half like making tweaks to the road system to see if he could fix the traffic.
That is so fascinating. Like you already said, I mean, I've been repeating you a lot on this episode where it's just like that person's perspective, playing that game in such a detailed way, I'm sure was just so interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was. And then I got disillusioned with city governance in general, and so I found the games harder to watch.
Sure.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was one I spent a lot of time on.
Did you? You probably know Scott Theed through musical improv.
I do.
Scott came on this show 3 years ago and talked about City Skylines. So if you ever need someone to talk to about it, Scott is around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah, I see Scott all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I tried playing it so many times, and I'm like, it's just less interesting when I do it.
Sure. That's so funny, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I would like to know from you, sort of more, you said that's pretty present day thing for you. Is there a game that you've either been playing lately that you want to highlight or that you're looking forward to that you want to highlight before we wrap up this section?
Well, no, because at this point in my life, I only play one game.
Uh-huh.
I'll go through, like, I'll have, like, a week here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I played Slay the Spire.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Roguelikes are the ones that can suck me in for, like, a week.
Okay.
And then I'll play them obsessively. Not well. I should clarify for the listener. I'm not good at video games. If it wasn't clear when I told you my little brother was crushing me, like when I was like a teenager and he was like 9. Yeah, I'm bad at games. So I like roguelikes. But no, really, the main event is all I've been able to really play for a decade now.
Dang. I can't wait. Well, Sarah, thanks for sharing about, some of the highlights throughout your life. when it comes to
Of
video
course.
games. This has been so much fun to hear from you on that, and I'm never going to forget your mom's journey with the Bugs Life Game Boy game and you taking up the mantle. Well, we're going to go ahead and just take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll finally get into all things League of Legends, so I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Call Me by Your Game. Connor McCabe here, returning with Sara Rose Caplan. Sarah, hello.
Hello.
And it's finally time to get in today's main event. League of Legends is what we're going to be discussing. So without further ado, I'm just going to start talking about the game, Sarah. And if you want to jump in, you've got the green light.
For sure.
Okay, here we go. League of Legends, commonly referred to as League, is a 2009 multiplayer online battle arena, also known as MOBA, video game developed and published by Riot Games, inspired by Defense of the Ancients, also known as Dota, a custom map for Warcraft 3. Riot's founders sought to develop a standalone game in the same genre. Since its release in October 2009, League has been a free-to-play game and is monetized through purchasable character customization. And it was first available for Windows and has been available for Mac as well, I believe, since 2013. Sarah, would you, I just very briefly set the table saying this game is a MOBA. Would you mind describing what that is for the listener and what it feels like when you're playing it?
Sure. Yeah. MOBA, multiplayer online battle arena, I believe you just said. And in the case of League of Legends, it means, at least ever since they got rid of Twisted Tree Lines, pour one out for Twisted Tree Lines. What it means in the case of League of Legends is that you are on a team of 5 people and you are playing against a team of 5 people. So 10 human players, all told. You all exist on one map together, and it is a base-taking game. So you each have a base in one of the corners. There's 3 lanes. This is like the format that was ripped from Dota, but it's pretty standardized now. There's a bot lane, a mid lane, and a top lane, and a jungler. And y'all are working together to destroy the enemy team's towers and ultimately crush their nexus.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's simple. It's black and white. There's clearly delineated good and evil in this game. My team good. Other team bad.
This is one thing I was reading about it too. Again, like I was telling you and the listener knows, there's some genres that I have only seen videos of, this being one of them, but I have come to understand, this is like someone trying to connect with someone at a party, that matches can range from 15 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, it's true. 15 minutes is when your team can surrender. And
interesting.
When you're playing with randos, you will League is such a big game. It's one of the biggest games in the world.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest player bases, one of the biggest cultural phenomena. And yet it's like so insular. You either play it or you don't. There's games like Pokemon that have had such broad outreach and influence in worlds, like people who have never even considered playing a video game will know what Pikachu is.
Yeah.
And in the United States, that's just not the case for League, even though it's one of the biggest games ever made.
Totally.
It is more true in Korea, where like people will be like, "Oh, that's Teemo," who've never played the game.
Yes. Is that a character or an esports player?
Teemo is a character.
Great.
He's a Yordle, which means he comes from Bandle City.
Okay.
And these are immortal little guys, little critter furry people. And Teemo is a scout, and he says stuff like, "Captain Teemo on duty." When you use him, Teemo's famous. He's like one of the big mascot characters.
Sure.
He's one of the oldest characters. He's also famously hated by the player base and loved. It's a love-hate relationship because he's really annoying to play against. But that's the kind of thing. You've never heard of Teemo. Where do I even start? It's like if someone came up to you and they were like, So I heard you were into Marvel. What's that about? Oh.
You're like, how do I even start? Do I tell you about Stan Lee? Do I not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so matches can be 15 minutes. A standard match, assuming that you don't have like a team that starts spamming FF15 in the chat because you died one time.
Gotcha.
The standard length of a game has varied over the years, patch by patch, but right now you should not queue up for a game if you don't have a solid hour and 10 minutes free.
Cool. Gotcha.
That does not stop me from doing it when I don't have a solid hour and 10 minutes free, but I know that I'm doing something naughty.
Okay, there we go. That's great. This is I think where I'll take the conversation now, and I'll just leave, like, if there's more details you want to share, if there's like granular stuff you want to get into, please do. But let's start to get in your time with it. How did you discover League in the first place?
I started playing League of Legends my freshman year of college.
Cool.
Because my little brother was playing it.
All right.
My little brother, big gamer. And I mostly started playing it just as like a context to talk to him more.
Sure.
My brothers and I were all close, but he was left at home. He's the youngest, so he was there by himself. So we would play League together. I was also a very depressed, isolated nerd my freshman year of college who probably shouldn't have discovered League because it gave me such a good thing to stay in my dorm room and do, but and be like, no, I'm playing with my brother.
Yes.
But I played it a lot. I wasn't good. I was playing on my laptop. I was playing, like you said, it wasn't released for Mac until 2013 in that little Wikipedia summary. But I was playing on my MacBook Pro in 2011.
Amazing.
On who knows what shitty port I was using to play it. I was using a trackpad. I was just sitting there playing it in bed on my laptop using a trackpad. And I can't even imagine doing that now.
Yeah. This isn't that important, but I want to know, where did you go to school, and was it close? Was it near enough to see your family and your brother, or were you like across the country?
No, I went to Harvard, so I was in Boston when my family was back in Texas. So It was definitely not like a easy visit situation. And it was so cold, and I'd never experienced winter before, and it got dark so early, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And why not just stay inside and in the soothing warmth of Summoner's Rift getting pwned by 12-year-olds?
This is the thought process of your 19-year-old self being like, why not do it? This is great. Just don't go outside in Cambridge, Massachusetts and freeze to death. Let's just stay inside.
That. Yeah.
That's so cool. So was it that like your brother, I think you said your brother was playing it, and so you're like, oh, I'll play this too as a means to connect sort of and stay in touch?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you remember early on playing this game if you were drawn to like certain characters or play styles already?
Yeah, totally. My first main was Pantheon. Pantheon has since been completely reworked. Very different champ. I was a classics minor in college, and Pantheon is a beefy buff, like Greek soldier inspired.
The name
Greek as in like ancient
out.
Greek. Yeah. Yeah, he looks like fucking Achilles or something.
Oh wow, I'm looking. By the way, I'm gonna be doing a lot of Google image searches on this. That checks out so far.
Yeah, I was also like a closeted queer person.
Yeah.
Who was like, I so as I've said, I'm trans. At the time, I didn't know what trans people were. Like, I wouldn't really know what that was until my senior year of college, and so I was just in this state of like, I feel like I'm gay, but I'm also like I'm attracted to women.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know I'm bisexual, but like, I just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that part of the reason why I played this mostly naked beefcake Pantheon was related to that. Loved him. My next main was Fizz. Fizz is a little. I think he's technically a Vastaya in the lore, but he might be like an aquatic Yordle. I'm not sure. But Fizz is a little ocean guy. People call him a frog. And
Fizz
he
is
jumps
really
around.
cute.
He's really cute. He's a very slippery assassin character. But mostly he's really cute, and that's why I liked him.
That's awesome.
And those are my early loves.
Okay.
And League was a game that, like, you know, I started in 2011, and it's interesting when they say it's like League of Legends is a 2009 game, because it's not. League of Legends was first released, the beta was released in 2009, but League of Legends is a game that's constantly being overhauled, constantly being updated. So it doesn't make sense to me to call it of any particular year.
Yeah, it's like a living game, more
Yeah.
like that. And while it's not the same type of game as like World of Warcraft, in a similar way, they've been kept and updated for years and years, probably in way different ways, but
Yeah, I mean, League of Legends is a knockoff of Dota, which is itself is a World of Warcraft mod. But yeah, like I think the people who founded Riot worked at Blizzard
okay.
initially. But it's very much the same ethos. It's constantly being developed. At the start of the game, I think they were putting out a new champion, which is the equivalent of like a character in Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
They were putting out new champions like once a month, maybe even 2 a month.
Wow.
Like, just constant updates and excitement. Now they'll put out a new champion in like maybe 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Because they have so much else to focus on. And also, like, when you only have 20 champions, adding a champion's fine. When you've got like 150, then trying to figure out how it all balances, and like, does this person's ult interact weirdly with that person's W and all that stuff. Okay, so League of Legends is based on all your moves are QWER. Those are like each champion's 4 main moves. So when I say like Fizz's W is an empowered auto attack reset, that's what I mean. That's the move that happens when you press W.
Yes, and on the keyboard, I'm looking now and I'm like, oh, you put it. I'm so used to being WASD for the PC games I've played, but I'm like, oh, it's QWER all the way across. Okay.
Yeah, this is a quarter game.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because it's mouse. It's keyboard and mouse.
Yes.
So you move around with the mouse. Top down, which is great for my brain. Really, like, I think part of what drew me to it is it's an incredibly complex game in the way that chess is incredibly complex.
Mm-hmm.
But like chess, the objective is incredibly simple. You're trying to kill the enemy team's nexus.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you do, any other strategy that develops, all other complexity is ultimately in service of this one clear goal that motivates you. And I have found, like, my big problem with video games, why I'm not a gamer, why, as much as I might find it particular, like Horizon Zero Dawn is beautiful, and I really enjoyed the 10 hours that I put into it. I think because my brain is broken in the ways that it is. I feel like I've been living through basically one continuous existential crisis since I was 14. And anytime a video game is like, all right, what do you want to do now? I'm like, oh no. What? No, I am playing this as a mechanism to escape the foundational terror of my free agency.
Yes, tell me what to do, game.
Yeah. And so just to have a game where it's like, for the next 45 minutes, all you have to do is kill these 5 guys, kill their towers, and try to get their nexus. It's very clear. And I don't have to find any motivational system for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to confront the infinite horror of true freedom. It's very soothing to me. It's like, the more chaotic the world has become, and the more afraid I am of the world, and the more deeply I think about and perseverate about what is my role as a person in this ever collapsing world. What are my responsibilities here? What could I be doing to make something better in the future? The more I find myself drawn to maybe I should spend 45 minutes in Summoner's Rift.
Yes. That's such an interesting, thing that you've observed about the way you feel about the game based on your life. Like, and even the game, while the goal is simple, like you said, maybe your brain, I think theoretically you could be like, well, there's freedom in how you do it, but that is probably, maybe for you, sounds like that you're like, no, what is the way to do it, and how can I optimize like choice, like path and choice? What are you gonna say?
That's a completely reasonable conclusion to draw from what I've said thus far. But again, I'm terrible at video games. Maybe if I were good at video games,
sure,
that's how I would play it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. So the objective is clear.
Yes.
But I'm 100% someone who loves doing the stupidest off-meta pick.
Yeah.
Like, this won't make sense to you, of course. I love playing Nami mid. Nami is like a quintessential heal slut support role enchanter. She's a little mermaid. She throws bubbles at people to CC them, and she heals her teammates with her W. And I have... Oh, God. So they just changed the mastery system. Before they did that, I had 1.9 million mastery points on this character, which is like an ungodly amount of time spent playing this one champion.
Mm-hmm.
When other people find out, not only that I had that many mastery points on any champion at all, and I mean like people who are more addicted to the game than I am, they'll just be like, how can you play that many games of this one champion? And when they find out it's Nami, they were like, how? Because she's a support. And in these worlds, if you're playing support, you're not like the badass main character who's carrying your team.
Mm-hmm.
You're the healer. You're the white mage. You're the one who's just like following your AD carry around, buffing and healing them so that they can be the hero.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that's the play style that speaks to me.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, like, I got so frustrated. When I'm playing with friends, I'll happily still play support.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm playing with randos, if I'm, hard grinding solo queue to up my rank, which, listener, if you're curious, yes, I'm a hard stuck bronze 3 support main and have been for years, but I did get to gold 3 in 2020. Sorry. I'm just not sure how to talk to you about a game that's so inside baseball.
No, it's true. And you can see me nodding along, being like, that's cool, or like, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yes. But some context clues, I'm able to piece it together. Otherwise, I'm like, this is great.
So when I play solo queue, like, to play ranked, you can't play with a pre-made party of friends.
Gotcha.
And when you play support, like I do, there's a distinct likelihood that the person you're supporting is like 13 and has not learned any skills of emotional regulation or communication.
Yes.
And you'll mess up because you're bad at video games, in my case.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll just have this 13-year-old yelling at you like, uninstall the fucking game. Holy shit. Why would you even play this shit? You fucking bitch. And I'm
Jesus.
like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Great escapism.
Yeah.
So now I just play mid lane, which is a solo lane, but this is a character who's designed as a healer and buffer who does not belong there.
Yeah.
But I've played her so many times, it feels so natural, the timings of these moves. Like any other time, if I play a different champ at this point, it's just like I go from being bad to being super bad.
Yeah.
So I play mid lane and I lose, and my team loses, and they rightfully blame me, and I don't care because I have fun seeing if I can win doing this, which I do more often than I should.
Yeah. That's the fun part for you.
Yeah. There's like a perverse trolling kind of joy in knowing that you just like killed someone in a 1v1 with Nami.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, it's the expression of mastery of this one champion that's like become what I enjoy.
Yes.
Rather than the winning of the game itself.
Totally. That's so interesting. And that's like where you are now with it. It wasn't where you were for the longest time, right?
No. I mean, I like I've waxed and waned over the years how much I played. But it was primarily just a game I played with friends.
Yes.
And we would do silly comps all the time. My friends I play with now, we still do. We'll do like weird themed comps. Like, you can only play someone who looks like they smell terrible or whatever. But there was a while there where I like was more serious about my rank.
Sure.
But I maxed out at gold 3, which is not impressive. It's like slightly above average rank.
Gotcha.
And the people I play with now, I'm in this Discord. It's like a very classic trans girl gaming Discord.
Mm-hmm.
They're all younger. They're like 20s, young 20s or mid 20s that I tend to play League with, and they're a lot better than me. And the running joke, because it's my primary excuse, and now they've started using it as a bit of kind ribbalding. I'm just like, I'm sorry, all my 30-year-old brain cannot see that.
Yes.
I'd be like, didn't you see that Jin was charging up his 4th shot? Like, why didn't you dodge? And I'd be like, sorry, 30-year-old brain.
Mm-hmm.
I can't process that information.
Yeah. I'm at a disadvantage here, and that is what I'm going to tell you is the reason.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I do genuinely think it's true. Like,
yeah,
they will talk about seeing things happening that I just don't perceive.
Mm-hmm.
Like the speed at which they're perceiving the game.
Yeah.
And I think I've always I have a very quick brain when it comes to things like wit.
Yeah.
If it's improv, for sure. Visual processing, I'm very weak at.
Sure.
Like, I remember being in Little League and people saying like, well, you can like see which direction the ball is moving. And I'm like, you can?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Gosh. I'd like to ask you whether it's about like the crew that you play with now or past crews. Do you have like a most memorable time or like a match that sticks out in your head, recent or of the past?
Yeah. I would say I got most heavily back into League in 2019 and 2020 with my ex Maddie. The gaming PC I still use is one she bought me so that we could play League together. And we played a lot, and she hated playing with me because she cares a lot about winning, and I care a lot about seeing what happens if I try a thing.
Sure.
But yeah, and like I look back on that fondly.
Yes.
I don't, maybe she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But that was always very fun. And over the years, I've just had like different meandering crews. Like I would play with my little brother a lot at the start, and then he started confronting his own like actually pretty serious video game addiction stuff. So he stopped playing for a long time. And now I like don't want to suck him back into it because your friend who told you that he was addicted to it.
Yeah.
Like, it is addictive. It's
something I've heard about this game, one that I've only been loosely familiar with like forever. It's like the first thing I hear about it from people who are really into it is kind of that.
Yeah. If I meet someone and I bring up the game and they're like, oh, I play League of Legends, I'll be like, sick, let's play. If someone else is like, oh, I've been thinking about starting League of Legends, I'll be like, do not.
Don't try this
Don't
drug.
start it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I don't know what it is. It's like, it's just, I guess in the way of so much of the modern world, it's so optimally designed as like a dopamine slot machine.
Sure.
Yeah. But other key games that stick out to me, this crew I've been playing with recently, I've been playing with since 2021 or 2022, and we've kind of like slowly condensed into this very small group of friends who will play together, who have similar values about the game.
Okay.
Like we will very happily have a ton of fun losing a game that we play in a silly way.
Yeah.
And like see if we can pull off a thing. And if we pull off some theoretical combo that we've dreamt up, and like if we get it to work like once and otherwise get absolutely crushed, we'll be happy.
Yeah.
And so that's been really fun. There are a couple of people in there who don't feel that way but are our friends, and so we've been training them to accept the losses.
Yes.
That
sounds like a great, at least from what you said, a great fit for like the experimental nature that you like to play, or like the fun you just like to have, win or lose.
100%.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's
like,
great.
Like people who want to win don't play with me for long.
Yeah.
But that means that now that this group of people that I play with are always down to clown. Usually if we want to start a game, it'll be a Discord message of like silly league.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I would be embarrassed to tell you to look up how many games I've played like this year. Because when you ask like, is there a particular match that sticks out?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
They blur.
I mean, let's see if there are like websites that tell you how many games you've played, and I'm gonna see if I can find that for you.
Okay.
That seems like useful information to give you some context.
Why not?
Right? Let's see. Okay. My name is Nami Issues. If anyone out there wants to add me as a friend. And lose a game with me.
By the way, Nami looks like is so reminiscent of. Well, I think I'm only saying this because she's like a water creature too, but it's like reminiscent of Fizz. But she looks way more serious than Fizz.
She's actually pretty goofy.
Okay,
she's got a kooky little personality.
Maybe I'm just looking at fan art that is a different version of Nami, for all I know.
You know, a lot of the Nami fans like to play up her sort of pristine beauty, and they lean into that aesthetic. Earth the Nami tee is my go-to skin that I use. It is Nami wearing a manatee onesie.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Nami issues. Can I find the information? I know I'm bronze 3. Oh my god.
But while you're looking too, I'm looking at this Nami manatee like headdress thing, and that is so good.
It's great, right?
Like you might need to get yourself a hoodie of that if it exists.
That's a freaking dream.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're editing this show, I'm sorry, this is slow. This is one of those things where I feel like it's important context.
Hey, I'm along for the ride. You are all good.
Okay, great.
Is it one of those things where you're like searching like a league website and it has every username on there?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, I looked up my username and it has all like there's like League is pretty open. Like there's a lot of APAs that anyone can make games and stuff for. Which is cool. I don't know. How much time wasted on LOL? I know that's a website. That's like an average one.
Like it's gonna come up.
It's gotta come up.
Yeah.
Connor, I'm sorry. This was a mistake.
Don't worry. Well, hey, we're along for the ride.
We're along for the ride.
And if we get the number, can you imagine how satisfying it's gonna be?
It'll be so good.
Or devastating?
It'll be devastating no matter what.
Well, it's just given me more time to look at these characters and on the Google image search that I'm looking at. So
great. Perfect.
How could I complain about that?
Okay. I found some data for you.
Oh my gosh, let's hear it.
Okay, so according to wastedonlol.gg, WOL.gg, which this is an approximation, but it aggregates the number of games you've played and uses the average length of a game of League of Legends. According to this website, since 2018, I have played 4,885 hours of League of Legends, or 204 days.
Oh, almost halfway to the 10,000 hours rule.
Yes, and for reference of like how dangerous this game is, this in just the North American server, that ranks me at 27,997th. So that means almost 28,000 people have played more League of Legends than that in the last 6 years.
That's wild. My gosh. I mean, this. First of all, thank you for looking up that hard data. That was important to like add some, I guess, some credence to like your theory or what you were bringing up earlier, just talking about the like addictive nature of it and how much of a time sink it can be.
Yes.
Gosh. One thing that I also meant to ask you earlier too, and because this is a game that spanned years for you, like this is probably a difficult question, but do you have a particular like setup that you used to play League? I mean, you kind of described the one, at your dorm, in your dorm at Harvard, but is there a setup that you like loved that you had, and could you scene paint that room for me?
Whoa, scene paint the room that I played the game in?
Yeah, it could be that dorm room, it could be the room you're in right now, like.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there have been many rooms in which I've played this game.
Yeah,
so
a weird one to ask this for.
I'll work backwards. Like now, I have much more of a gamer girl setup.
Yeah.
You can see it behind me.
Yep.
So I'm at like my work side of my office.
Okay.
And then that's the play side of my office. So I have a fancy gaming, top of the line gaming PC as of 2019. I have not updated it since then.
Cool.
And a couple monitors. You gotta have your gaming monitor, and then you have your Discord monitor.
Of course.
Microphone setup, RGB lights, the whole shebang. Yeah.
I mean, I can see the glow of some of them in the background.
Yes, you can. And that's where I've come, but that's only through the graces of my very generous ex Maddie. And until then, I was just playing on a MacBook Pro. As I said at the beginning, first season of League, me lying in my my dorm assigned what was it called? It's like an extra long twin bed,
okay,
or whatever they give the college kids, in a tiny little single dorm room at Harvard Yard. Snow falling beautifully on the trees outside. Students bundled up, playing in the wintry wonderland. And Sarah, wearing 3 sweatshirts, huddled up in her tiny bed, losing as Fizz on Summoner's Rift.
Repeatedly, over and over.
Over and over again. Why can't I get better? She shouted to the heavens from her trackpad. That's where it started. My dorm rooms in college, then I lived in Mather House. Any Harvard heads out there, you know what I'm talking about. Peak brutalism, ugly concrete college dorm vibes. And I had tiny singles my whole time in college, conveniently, so I could play till 4 or 5 in the morning all I wanted without bothering a roommate.
That's huge.
Yeah. And League is actually, like, I think also part of the reason why I played it, because I didn't have a gaming PC most of my, well, for all of my youth until my late 20s. It is not a processor intensive game.
Correct.
You can play it on a laptop, like not at max graphics, but that doesn't matter as much because that's not why you're playing it. In 2020, when I was playing like my most hardcore, longest hour grinds, my ex Maddie and I keep calling her ex. You know who Maddie is by now. Maddie, and I should say, listener, we're on great terms. I officiated Maddie's wedding last year.
No way.
We're doing great.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, we lived in a 1,000-foot like exposed brick studio in Oakland. As I said, I was in law school. I was at Berkeley. And you might be wondering, I realized in the break, I casually mentioned law school. And listener, you might be like, she's a lawyer? Why does she have time to do a podcast in the middle of the day? I'm not a lawyer. I dropped out of law school to come back to LA and do improv.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that was a tough setup because Maddie worked from home, and
Gotcha.
Obviously everyone worked from home. It was COVID, but she's a software developer, and she would work from home, and she'd be in meetings, and like I'd be over in the corner like, "Fuck, that's fucking bullshit. That bubble hit," and she'd be like, "Can you?" Stop.
Just locked together in that
in our studio apartment.
Oh, what a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's great. You did more painting than I could have hoped for, which is like several scenes. Sort of as we maybe like approach the tail end of this segment, the main event today, is there anything that, before I ask you to wrap up your thoughts, is there anything you haven't said about your time with League that you want to, whether it be like an aspect of the game you want to touch on, or just like a way that, like a relationship that it created for you? I kind of wanted to open that up.
Yeah. That's a very good question. I think that okay, so the one aspect of League that I haven't touched on yet that has become like an increasingly big part of my experience of the game, and how I relate with some of these League friends, is getting into the competitive scene, like watching competitive League. We're right in the middle of I think all the leagues are having their playoffs right now, but I mostly watch the LCK, the Korean Professional League.
Okay.
In any video game context, have you heard someone use the term faker?
I have not.
Fuck. Okay.
I can look it up too.
Faker's the greatest of all time League player.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Like he's like the like Wayne Gretzky of League of Legends.
Is he?
But he's still
in LCK?
playing. He is.
Okay.
He's still playing mid laner for T1. And that's like how I asked you that, and I'm like, in my head I was like 75% chance he's faking.
Has to. But host a gaming podcast? Come on.
Yeah, that's what exactly. Like if you were like a normie, it'd be one thing. But you're a gaming pod. Yeah. So I in his final seasons, he's 28. He's old and washed up at this point. The carpal tunnel's setting in. The reflexes are slowing. So he's not having his best season. But I've been having a lot of fun watching him. I'm like, it's just, I don't know. I've enjoyed it. I guess it's bandwagoning, but they're not the best team anymore. I just like following like the end of his career and seeing him still cruising along. Yeah.
Is there something that's like that compels you, or like that's compelling about his journey right now that you're interested in?
I know nothing about him as a person.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's just this idea of like the chance to watch like the guy who is the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
Like, like might be how people feel watching LeBron now, or like at the tail end of like Michael Jordan's career or something, like, or anyone who voluntarily watched Tom Brady play on the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Like, even though they won, I fucking hate Tom Brady.
I was so upset when they won that first year too.
Oh my God.
Like, I was even already like not the biggest football fan anymore. Now I actually am more of one than I used to.
Wait, what's your team?
Well, I don't even have a team anymore, but what I'll tell you is that I was a Rams fan my entire life until the first year that I was like, you know what? I don't feel any ownership over this anymore. I'll just watch the sport. They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Classic. A couple years ago. But it really felt like my best friend's team won. Like I was like, that's cool.
Good for you, bud.
Yeah, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, these are analogies that I do understand.
Okay. Good.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, if that helps make it make sense. Like, it's nothing
Yes.
about Faker specifically. It's just like this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like this could be his last season. Who
Mhm.
knows? Like, if they win Worlds this year, maybe he'll retire.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely not at his prime anymore. And it's just been interesting to watch it. And
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah. See like a legend, like as the sun sort of sets. That's very interesting. And amazing. Well, I think I'm gonna finally pose that last question to you as well.
Oh yeah.
Would you do me a favor? I know we've talked about such a breadth of experience that you have with this game, and not just in like the way that playing the game has changed for you, the crews that have changed for you, but like in the contexts. But Sarah, can you do your best to sort of put a bow on whatever place League holds for you?
Oh my God. Now, currently, or overall?
Just overall, I would say.
Yeah, I would say League of Legends has been my most consistent opium of choice.
Okay. It's just like a perfect sentence to tie that up. That's great. Well, Sarah, thanks for bringing it on. Thank you for being so patient with me too, as you say probably surface level things about the game that I just nod along and try to understand. Thank you for guiding me through it. I appreciate you bringing League on and being the brave person to do that for the first time on the
show. No problem. Thanks for being willing to have it on. It's and absolutely no worries with the patience. I'm sure you've had many times where you're talking to non-improv people and you mention like a second beat and then you have to be like, wait a second. Okay, so a beat is
let me rewind for you. Awesome. Well, before we go, I've got 2 fun segments prepared for you based on League. The first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game segment, and this is just where I share fun facts about the game with you. So I'll say this is like not even that fun of a fact. This is just an observation I made about the game. Normally I have like a really cool factoid from like, did you know gaming on YouTube? This is just comes from me reading the Wikipedia about League of Legends, but I am amazed. This is just kind of an observation. I'm amazed at the explosion of like media around League of Legends that they have, which, as a player for so many years, a decade at this point, you know, but for the listener, while League of Legends has been around since its 2009 release, there have been a bunch of media that's been released around it over the years, and right now specifically, like looking at the last 4 or 5 years, we seem to be in kind of a golden age, an explosion of League media. This includes other video games, books, music videos, TV series, and more. I'm going to list a couple factoids, and then Sarah, I'll probably throw to you to see if there's any of these you want to highlight. Since 2019, there have been 10 spin-off video games released, with Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story, being the most recent in February 2024, so this year. There's also been 4 books, 4 comics, 4 albums released by virtual bands made up of champion characters, 2 tabletop games, and 7 one-shots. And there's probably even stuff that's not on the wiki that I didn't list.
Well, and you didn't even list probably the most culture crossover part of it, Arcane.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the, like, I guess I didn't even list that at all. Not even the TV show reference. But have you watched Arcane? Were you like into it?
I fucking loved Arcane.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Haven't seen it, but like I've only heard amazing things about it.
Arcane is so much better than it has any right to be. When I sat down to watch the League of Legends TV show, I had 0 expectations.
Sure.
Like, I'm not a fanboy. I generally hate any adaptation of an otherwise beloved piece of media. Wheel of Time, Amazon series, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
And Arcane's just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, everyone should watch it. It's one of the few, it's a French animation studio, but it's one of the few pieces of Western animation that I feel like has been able to hit like the potency, depth of character, and like power of storytelling that like anime is able so often to hit for adult oriented animation. It's really great.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean even just like, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was the whole thing that Arcane was the thing that got me on this trail, because I was like, oh, what other like things have they done spin-off wise? And turns off just countless things.
Yeah, you mentioned the albums. KDA is the best-selling K-pop idol group made up entirely of League of Legends champions, like Akali, Kaisa, Seraphine, and the music is great.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of issues with Riot as a company. All companies are bad. Company bad. I'm not a communist. I'm an anarchist. But,
yeah.
I'm anti-capitalism. Get at me. Call me by your game, listeners.
Like, oh no, that's the one thing they don't like, is when people say that. They're flooding at you.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I will say, as a company, the investment and care that Riot has put into all these offshoot projects, like the budget they will put into the cinematic videos to start, like they take that shit seriously and like genuinely want to make good products, and they allow their creatives a lot of freedom there. And that's created a really hugely rich world of like surrounding media.
So cool. Yeah, I was just, again, not really a fact, just an observation. Was blown away by that. That's the only thing I have for the Fact Me By Your Game segment. But
yeah,
I'll lead us into the last one.
Great fact.
Hey, we'll take it. The game recommendations. Now, Sarah, this is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat League of Legends like your Army Hammer, your passionate summer fling in Italy.
Oh no, it's going to eat me.
It might, so be warned. I've got 3 recommendations for you that all have a little something in common with League. I'll dive into those now. The first of which is, if what you get out of this game is you just love that it's an esport monster to lose yourself in, which I know you've mentioned that you like watching esport, at least League and esports, but being that competitive probably doesn't sound like it's your thing. I was just going to recommend Counter-Strike, a famous esport, a game you've probably heard of a million times.
Not a game I can play, but it is a game I can enjoy watching.
After you talking about the FPS stuff, it's like, well, there we go.
Totally. But I love watching people play FPS games.
Yeah.
I just can't do it myself.
There we go. Okay. So maybe more of a viewing experience. If instead, thinking of Arcane, this second recommendation is the opposite, because Arcane is a show inspired by a video game. What if instead we had a series turned game? I mean, there's plenty of those. The one I'll recommend to you, actually a series I like the first episode of at least, is the Walking Dead Telltale series. Have you played this at all?
I haven't played it, but it is definitely one of those games that I've had friends like extol over the years.
Yeah, I have very limited experience with Telltale. I've only really played the Back to the Future game all the way through, which is like, when I played it in 2011, I loved it. This game, I played The Walking Dead. I played episode 1 because I took a narrative games writing class last fall, which that in itself was cool, but we had to play through this for class, and just really interesting and compelling on like decisions and how decisions can and choice can affect things in a game. Lastly, your final recommendation is, if you want to play another MOBA, but you just need it to be really stinking cute and probably frustrating, I'll recommend to you Pokemon Unite. Have you dabbled being a Pokemon fan?
I haven't, but I thought that recommendation might be coming.
Kind of the easiest layup of recommendations, probably.
Yeah, no, I should dabble in this game. When it first came out, I think at least the reputation was it was very pay to win.
Yes, I remember.
And I don't know if that's changed or if you've played it.
Haven't touched it at all. I've truly have one friend who coincidentally is like a huge Pokemon Unite streamer, and so I'll watch him for like 5 minutes at a time before I click over to something else. But that's my experience with the game, is watching him.
Yeah, no, I've never played it. I only play League of Legends. I don't have time for other games.
Yeah.
I don't even have time for the amount of League of Legends that I play. So I love these recommendations, though. I will keep them in mind.
Huge.
Next time I'm looking for a steamy Florentine fling.
There we go. Yes.
I'll check one of these out.
To recap for you, we've got Counter-Strike, The Walking Dead Telltale series, and Pokemon Unite. That'll do it for the recommendations, and that'll actually bring us to the end of the show. So before we, replug a few things for you, and I do just a slew of plugs as well, Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today and talk with me about League of Legends and your time with it. This was awesome having you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm sorry I had so much to say about it.
That is the least of my worries. Like, it's when I have to pull teeth, which has basically never really happened on the show, when I have to pull teeth with a guest to hear about things. No, this is all I could have hoped for. Thank you again. What do you want to plug on your way out? Maybe stuff you've already plugged or something we haven't gotten to?
Yeah, I'll recap from earlier. Check out my Riverdale Season 6 podcast if you want. Depending on when you're listening to this, I've been plugging this imaginary podcast that I haven't started yet.
Oh.
But maybe it'll be out someday, and maybe you'll be listening to this in the future. So I have a podcast project called Cool Ant that I will hopefully be starting soon. My older brother just had his first baby, my first little nibbling, and I'm the poor art sibling.
Hey.
So I can't buy him anything cool.
Yeah.
But I know a bunch of cool people, and the plan is just to interview all these cool people that I have access to who've lived lives in so many different ways and had so many different experiences, and compile sort of an anthology of completely different ways that life can be approached and lived for my baby nephew to someday listen to in the far future as he's trying to think about what he wants to do with his own life, or feeling certain ways about what it should be or can't be.
That's really precious. I have an incoming niece at the end of the year. First one of those for me. So I think we might have at least 2 people listening to the show in the future.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Your nephew,
in 16 to 37 years, when I get those 2 listeners popping up, I'll know.
Yes, absolutely. That's great. After I kind of interrupted you there, was there anything you hadn't plugged yet, or did you get to do those?
Oh, yeah. I mean, come to my workshops. Follow me on Instagram at Sara Rose Caplan.
Go see Yikes, too.
Come see Yikes, my Herald team. Come see Dramatique if we ever get another run. And I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to plug. Trans people are under attack all over the country, so pay attention to that stuff. Get your new COVID vaccine. Those are out.
Yeah.
That's good for everyone to do. Appreciate life, go outside, take a walk, and pick up a creative hobby. If you don't have a creative outlet, you should get one, even if you don't think of yourself as a creative person.
There we go. Not just tangible plugs to support you, but good things that people should keep in mind and do in their life.
Yeah.
You've given us so much today, Sarah. I'll go ahead and I'll just close this out with some plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by the artist Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on Instagram at Glenn with 2 Ns.jay. This show is produced, edited, and the original music throughout is by Jeremy Schmidt. If you want to give him a thanks for listening, all the work he does to help me make this podcast, you should check out his show, Video Games, a Comedy Show, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find the show all over social media. There's links in the show notes to the Call Me By Your Game accounts everywhere, to the Super NPC Radio accounts everywhere. You can follow me as well, and come watch me, because I've actually been streaming on Twitch. I go through big streaky times. I'm in a good streaky time now, where I've been playing Psychonauts 2. Any experience with the Psychonauts series, Sarah?
No.
Great. Maybe if you abandon
that's a
League,
horror game.
It's not a horror game. There are some horror moments, but it's like a 3D platformer where you play a kid who develops psychic powers, and you go into people's minds to help them solve problems and stuff. It's really great. I'm streaming Psychonauts 2 right now on Twitch at twitch.tv/consiscool69, so you can follow me there.
Cons is Cool 69.
Cons is Cool 69. The most
all right, well, And everyone, if you're listening, you know what else you can maybe catch soon on Cons is Cool 69 is A Bug's Life for PS1.
Hey, there we go. That actually motivates me to get my PlayStation 1 out. You can watch me stream there. Hopefully this fall I'm going to be a little more consistent. And then lastly, if you like this show and all the podcasts I make and you want to hear more crap from me, check us out on Patreon. We're over at patreon.com/supernpcradio. You can support us. There's a free tier where stuff gets released, but it's mostly the $1 and up stuff where bonus podcasts are released. I just spent truly like hours, maybe 6 hours organizing an old show that we retired called Super NPCs. It's on a perfect little catalog now. All 180 episodes of this old show is on our Patreon. So if you're on there, I would say if you're an existing patron and you haven't listened to that, go check it out. That's enough stuff from me though. Go ahead.
Do y'all have a Discord? Do you have a
Yes, we do.
Super NPC Discord?
Let me send you an invite to it. And honestly, a thing I forgot to plug is the Discord. You can message us on Call Me By Your Game or at Call Me By Your Game on whatever it is, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and I'll send you a link. And Sarah, I'll send you a link too, if that's what you were getting to, unless you were like just curious.
No, I wanted you to promote your Discord, but huge. If you're on this Discord, I'm going to join it. If you ever want to play League of Legends together, let me know.
Yes, we will. This is how we get a whole new cast of players.
Yes.
That's awesome. The Discord, I'll put a link. There's links in the show notes to all this crap I've been rambling about. But thank you so much for listening to another episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.